Rugby World Rankings, folks. Teams are on the move after the first round of July internationals. Who are the movers and shakers? What are the potential ramifications, A, for Rugby World Cup qualifications, but also B, for this coming weekend where we have more games on the horizon? We'll go through them. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how fair or not the rankings are. I am back home now, obviously. If you were with me for the Aussie, Fiji, or Ireland-Georgia match reviews, apologies for the sound and whatnot when I was on the road for that one. But back home, looking at some Rugby World Rankings. Remember, the World Cup draw, when it's made for the 2027 World Cup, is going to be based on Rugby World Rankings as for the seedings of the teams. Teams 1 through 6 are top seeds. They won't meet each other. So the All Blacks in South Africa can't meet in pool play. 7 through 12 would be second seeds, and so on. So these like 7th, 12th and whatnot, these are kind of good cutoff points if you want to not be a tier down in terms of the seedings. So 6th is certainly an exciting one to be looking at right now. There is some movement there in 6th. Hey, there's also potential movement coming up this weekend. What about South Africa at the top of the log? I've written them in blue, if you can see that. 92.78, no change, despite beating the Italians, what was it, 42-24. I don't want to say that result was underwhelming, but like the Italians did better than a lot of people thought they were going to do, put it that way. Like it was an Italian side missing a whole bunch of players down in South Africa for the first time in a long time. Big gun looking South African team. Like they still got well beaten, but South Africa take nothing from that one. Because one of the key things to remember about world rankings is if the gap between you and the team you beat is 10 points or more, you don't take nothing from them. 92-77, too big. And you get scored more if you're at home, as in like South Africa would have been scored at 94.78 because they got home advantage. So even less likely to take points. Nothing to do for South Africa. They can also take nothing this weekend. They can only lose points world rankings wise. Obviously, they don't schedule test matches just for world rankings points purposes, but yes, it is difficult for South Africa to take points off a lot of the teams because they are too low. If you want to see real difficult, you should check out the women's rankings because England are virtually hamstrung in terms of gaining more points because they are so far ahead of everyone else. The All Blacks did take some points in what was a pretty underwhelming performance over the French. They came out looking pretty good after the New Zealand media had kind of gone to town about this French team not being up to strength. Well, the All Blacks only won by 4, but the gap between the two sides, even with New Zealand's home advantage, is close enough that the All Blacks took 0.62 from that game. So the All Blacks have slightly closed the gap on the Springboks, although there's still, almost 2 full points between the sides. Ireland, with their win over the Georgians, are in the same boat as the South Africans. The gap is too much for them to take, even with the away weight nature of the game. Ireland couldn't take any points. Ireland were one of the genuine overperformers, if you want to put it that way. Very, very second string looking Irish team with all the, big guns out with the Lions. These fringe guys, uncapped guys, youngsters and whatnot did really, really well with their big win over the Georgians, but nothing doing for world rankings purposes. And the French, as I mentioned, they did lose points to the All Blacks, even if it was kind of a moral victory in terms of the margin being a lot better than all the bookies and, algorithms and whatnot had predicted. World Rankings only cares about wins and losses. It was a loss, so they lost some points. England and Argentina, this was a cracking one in terms of World Rankings because England was sitting in that precarious 6th spot, which is the last of the top seeds. Well, England winning means they took almost a full 2 points off the Argentinians, up 1.99. So the Argentinians lost 1.99, so they have swapped places, which is good news for England in terms of the next World Cup. Puts them one step closer to being a top seed going into that one and puts Argentina under a fair bit more pressure. Then there's the Scots, who, as I said, didn't move with the Māori All Blacks win because the Māori All Blacks, the British and Irish Lions, the Barbarians, any of those invitational teams that aren't on the world rankings, you can't get any points from because it's a points exchange system. So Scotland don't move, but they do have a very important game coming up this weekend, which we'll get to in a second. The Wallabies took some points off Fiji. Again, it's very similar to the England-Argentina thing. Both these sides are quite close to each other. So despite the fact that, the Wallabies were at home, so they didn't take as much as they would have if they were away, they still took, over half a point from the Fijians. So again, kind of chasing down. Look, the gap between the Wallabies, Scotland, and Argentina is almost nothing. So it's all up for grabs in that 6th spot. Fiji did drop points, like I mentioned. If they wanted to chase down 6, that was a game that they could have won. They're bloody close. Italy didn't move with the loss to the South Africans, like I mentioned. The Georgians didn't move. And another kind of big result was the Welsh 17th loss. Was it 18th? In a row. This time against Japan. And this is another one of those key cutoff points. This puts Wales in with the 3rd seed teams alongside the USA, Spain, Portugal, Uruguay, and Samoa. Yes, Wales have dropped into the kind of 3rd seedings with their spot now being 14th. Japan in with the 2nd seeds up with their win over the Welsh. Very, very big win for Eddie Jones's boys. Samoa didn't have to do anything to pass Wales. Samoa didn't play, but Wales' total is now below Samoa's total, so Samoa surpasses them in terms of their position on the world rankings. USA did play. They got a win over the Belgians, but no changes. Spain, Uruguay, Portugal. Portugal's got a game upcoming this weekend against the Irish. But if they lose that, there's not going to be anything doing on the world rankings there as well. Elsewhere, Chile beat the Romanians. They took points off them. And Hong Kong got a win over the Koreans to qualify for the World Cup. So big congratulations to all Hong Kong rugby fans. That's a massive achievement for them. First World Cup they have ever qualified for. How are the upcoming potential permutations for this weekend's games? Wales can swap back into the 2nd lot of seeds if they can finally break this losing run and get a win over the Japanese. Because they're away from home against a team now more highly ranked than they are, they will take a decent amount of points off the Japanese if they can get a win. So it's a chance to reverse their fortunes, at least get back with the 2nd seeds, like alongside the Scots and Aussies. Doesn't quite sound as bad for, the prestige and whatnot of Welsh rugby, instead of being alongside, with all due respect, some teams who don't have the same storied history as the Welsh. That can happen. New Zealand can continue to take points off the French if they win, but not enough to surpass the South Africans. I mentioned before, the South Africans can't take anything off the Italians, but the Italians could do the All Blacks a massive favour. If the Italians were to get a miracle win, South Africa would certainly drop. And the Italians would take a big chunk of change out of there. The Irish are playing the Portuguese, can't take any points due to the points gap there. And Argentina, despite the fact that they just swapped with England, can't get enough points to get back, even if they get a big win over the English. Because they're at home, they're just not going to score as many points as they did for losing last week. But they can certainly close the gap a wee bit on the English. So still a fair bit to play for rugby world rankings wise. And then there's a very important game for the Scots up against the Fijians. It's away in Fiji, which is a tough place to go. But the Scots, if the Argentinians drop another game against England and the Scots to get an away win against Fiji, the Scots could actually get back into those kind of top-seeded teams with an away win over Fiji. But obviously they need England to do them a favour for that one. Fiji certainly won't have given up on hunting down there. I mean, 79 to 82 is not an insurmountable gap as well. But yeah, Fiji certainly need to win at home against Scotland. Should be a pretty cracking game. But yeah, interesting times in the Rugby World Rankings, as I said, with the Rugby World Cup draw on the horizon. You guys let us know your thoughts. How fairly or not do you think the rankings are? It's always a bit of a weird one when the Lions are on, because teams like England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales still have to compete for Rugby World Rankings points without their Lions available. But France also does it when they send teams away in July. They also put World Rankings points at risk when they are unable to send a kind of full strength team due to top 14 commitments as well. So France, I feel like, is often a little bit underrepresented on the rankings because they tend to either lose points or don't gain the points they could if they were sending full strength teams in the July window. But yeah, there you go. You guys let us know your thoughts on the world rankings again. Once again, congratulations to Hong Kong for making it. And yeah, you guys subscribe to the channel if you want more world rankings chat. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.